So I mentioned in the first video for today that problems with your warp chains, with your warping process, and especially with beaming your warp can lead to, we'll call them challenges, opportunities when you're weaving the weft into your project. So let's take a look at the weft things I've been dealing with now and how I've tried to fix them. And keep in mind, right now I don't have the warp under tension, so it looks really sloppy. I'll tension it up in a second. So one of the first problems I had was some random broken warp ends. And if you're not clear on how to fix them, the easiest thing to do is to just cut a new length that will reach to your woven cloth past the fell and leave an end so that you've got plenty of wiggle room to play with later. And you just tie it. You tie the broken end and then you connect it, and then you can see my little pins here. You just wrap a T-pin into place so that it'll hold everything under tension until you've woven enough that you can undo things. Uh, One of my colors, this color, is in 5/2 cotton instead of 3/2 cotton, so I'm using doubled ends. Uh, when I had 3/2 cotton in the correct color, I used that, but I didn't for this color that I wanted to use up, so I've got two ends. And here, the problem was that initially my knots were too big to get easily through the reed. So every time I beat, I would mess up my tension again just on that one end, and nothing was fixing it. So you might have already figured out what I was going to do next. I did a knot from one warp end from the back all the way to the front, and ran it through the reed, and then I cut another longer warp end fix and tied it just in a different location so that they will never have to both go through the reed at the same time, messing things up. So if you're dealing with fat warp yarns and you have a broken warp end and you have an opportunity, if you're sorry, not fat warp ends, but doubled warp ends. If you're dealing with doubled warp ends and you're having problems with the knot being too big, just stagger the knots, and that can solve that problem right there. And this isn't a problem, but it's just a tip. When you're weaving a double width, double weave blanket, you want to make sure that you never catch a float that's supposed to be on the top layer in the bottom layer, and vice versa. So, and this is a trick from, of course, Jane Stafford. You set up one treadle that just moves only the top shafts out of the way, and it's not doing a very good job of it because I don't have tension on the warp. And then you can just check very quickly and easily. So I've got my 30-inch warping, a 30-inch sword out here, and it's stuck right now because my pin's going through both layers. But you can check and make sure that you don't have any problems of floats, because it's always easier to fix things on the loom before you get too far than to keep weaving and weaving and weaving and weaving and weaving, get it off the loom and go, oh crap. Remember that this is a cotton warp, which is going to be of necessity. Um, any fixes are going to be more visible than, say, with a wool warp, any wool yarn that folds. And it's a chenille weft. And again, chenille has this kind of wormy quality to it that can mean fixes look visible. So you don't want to have to fix things if you can avoid it. So let's put some tension on this warp, and I'll talk next about shuttle. So shuttles presented a slight challenge because even though I have made blankets like this in the past, in fact, for the daughter and son-in-law of the friends who were going to get this one, I couldn't remember what shuttle I used and how I did it. So I first wound bobbins to go in my boat shuttle. And that worked well enough, except that these bobbins just don't hold an awful lot of this yarn. And because I'm weaving two layers at the same time, uh, I could only get about an inch, inch and a half of woven length from one full bobbin. So that would mean a lot of ends. And as I just mentioned, when you're working with chenille, any cut ends can worm their way out. So I wanted to minimize the number of ends. Then I grabbed my stick shuttle, and that's what I'm currently using. And the problem with a stick shuttle is unless it's wider than the project you're weaving, and I am taking up almost the entire 36-inch weaving width of my standard floor loom right now. So the stick shuttle would have had to have been this long, and trying to, it would have needed to be 36 inches long. And trying to maneuver that in my small space where I'm already constantly knocking into things minute by minute, um, was a problem. And we'll see in a second when I actually show you what the weaving process looks like, how it just, you're going partway through the shed and then you have to reach in, and you're reaching through, and it's not fast and smooth. And for me, it was not a lot of fun. So then I realized, oh, I probably used perns in my end delivery shuttle the last time I wove a blanket at full width. And so I have now wound a pern, and we're going to do a little test here to see if it's faster and smoother. The other reason stick shuttles can be less than desirable, especially in a really wide project, is shaft looms and the wet looms come with this lovely shuttle race on the beater. And half the fun of weaving, to my mind at least, is watching that boat shuttle just whoosh along the beater race. When I got my first shaft loom, it did not have a beater race, and so I was always using stick shuttles. And oh my gosh, the moment I discovered the fun of using boat shuttles, I was hooked. That was it. That was all I wanted to do. So I'm going to weave a few picks with the stick shuttle, and uh, because I'm having these yarn chicken issues again, I will want to use up all the yarn on here, and then I'll show you what it looks like using the end delivery shuttle. And I'm also going to reposition the camera so that you can see what the warp ends look like as I play with different shafts. It's really, double weave is so much fun, especially when you're doing double wide stuff like this. Okay, so let's try things from this angle. Hopefully my head isn't blocking everything I'm trying to show you. So I'm going to do it with my stick shuttle first, just to show you that it is possible. It's just, for me, not quite as fun. And one of the tricks to weaving double wide, double width fabric is to always make sure that you have stopped at the beginning of the 4-pick sequence, or so that you can start up again at the beginning of the 4-pick sequence. So my sequence is treadle 1, which is tied up to shaft 1 and 3. And yeah, that was just the light fixture that I hit. And I'm making as big an angle as I can because this has got a lot of width to move over. Beat, raise my next, hit my next treadle, and pull it back. Now, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. So it's the odd plain weave pick for the bottom layer. And again, making a big angle, doing the beater, raising for the next pick. And now I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, the odd plain weave pick. Beat, do it back. And finally, I'm on the top layer again, doing the last pick for that. And so now the only shafts that are up are 2 and 4. And that is the sequence. And I did it slowly, and because I'm a little person with a not wide enough, with short arms and a not wide enough shuttle, you can see me moving back and forth and back and forth, and it's a little less than fun. Oh, this is actually a good time for me to also show you what happens when you change weft yarns. And I am not weaving all the chenille in the same color. I'm going to do great big blocks of color and then stop and change colors. And maybe it'll be symmetrical and maybe it won't. So I've ended on pick 4. I'm going to start again on pick 1. And so I can put my last, whoops, no, I can't unless I loop it around. If I loop around my last selvage, I can put my closing end, weft end, if you will, in the same shed. But watch how I'm going to do it with the new end. So this is me shooting it across, and it would have helped if I'd really shot it, but I didn't. Making my angle, and I'm on the wrong shed. There we go. That was a little better shot. Making my angle, but not tucking in my weft tail, because my next shed is going to be a bottom layer shed, and I don't want to connect the 2 layers at the what should be an open selvage. So I'm going to keep going, keep going, keep going until I get to that top layer again. Okay, so now I've got everything tucked in. The last thing I want to say about weaving double weave is, especially on a wide project like this, you want to advance your warp frequently, and I mean frequently. See this little pin here? This is telling me where it's time, where I want to mark, how far I want to pull my project forward and mark it uh, from the last place I stopped and advance the warp. So double weave, it's a blast. It's really cool. It creates a beautiful product, a beautiful piece of weaving, and it's just downright fun. So hope you enjoyed that.